What's going on, Badger fans? We continue to go through this 2024 class. Really talented player here, Ernest Willor JR, defensive tackle, defensive end out of Baltimore, Maryland, 6'3", about 260. I think he's like 6'4". I see in my YouTube graphic here, I had actually accidentally wrote cornerback. He is definitely a defensive lineman. That'd be a massive cornerback for the Badgers at 6'3", 260. Consensus four-star, the highest rated composite player in the 2024 class for the Wisconsin Badgers. A huge signing day win, tons of offer lists, tons of blue bloods after him. Really good film. Yeah, this was a needed addition, right? Because this defensive line group, it needed some juice on it. It needed an outside guy. I would have taken one more body. I've talked about it, but Ernest Willor JR, one of the biggest recruiting wins in program history. I'll just say it. Like, you get a four-star consensus, four-star defensive lineman out of state with this type of offer list. Yeah, that's one of the bigger recruiting wins in history. I really like the prospect. I obviously had him in my top 10 composite, my top 10 prospect list. The community had him number one overall on their list ahead of Mabry Mettoyer. Let's talk about the three things we like. The first one is it's the athleticism at the size. He's quick, explosive off the ball, strong, powerful. I think he can carry more weight, but he's not a plugger. Like a lot of defense linemen at this weight, they kind of lean in high school. They kind of grab. He can explode off the edge. Is able to get on the outside edge of offensive tackles and beat them with a speed rush. I really like him. Just the athleticism here is really impactful from a defense line prospect, and definitely what you're looking for first and foremost from him is you see that burst on that film, the ability to close on ball carriers, right? The ability to run down the line, violently tackle. Like there's just athletic, explosive ability here with Willor. It's a big part of his game and a big part of why Badger fans should be excited. The number two thing I like is he's been coached a little bit. This is not a raw prospect coming in. We're going to turn on the film, but you're going to see a variety of different pass rush techniques from him. A couple clips where, again, he's getting on the edge, using leverage, staying low on an offensive tackle, able to kind of just use that arm to ward him off and get right around the edge. Leverage is something we talk about with a lot of linemen coming out. He plays a pretty good leverage at times. He also has a swim move, a really nice kind of swim move that he's able to kind of set an offensive lineman up for, rip it across, and generate pressure from a different with a different type of attack. That's something else Willor brings. So, he brings something to the athleticism, but he's also been coached. There's technique there. I think that's really interesting. And then, obviously, I mean, it's the position, right? If we're talking about the third thing I really like about this, it's such a position of need for the Badgers. It's still a position of need for the Badgers. Like this does not fully plug the dam, right? The river is still building up. This pours some mortar into one of the holes. Hopefully, again, no recruit is a sure thing, but there's still some holes in this dam on the front seven, and you got to keep plugging it. But this is a huge part. You get a guy like this. You take a guy like this 10 times out of 10 times. You need one or two of these guys every single year to really build that front seven that you want to get. But this is a great start. Like it's got to start somewhere. Um, yeah, this was one of the biggest wins of the recruiting class for sure. All right, let's pull up the film. Let's watch a little bit of Ernest Willor JR. This is a guy who's going to play. I mean, he has the ability to play a five tech, which for those that maybe don't know what that is, five tech defensive lineman. That's a defensive lineman typically found like in a three-man front, 3-4, 3-3-5, and they're going to line up on the outside shoulder of the offensive tackle. That's primarily what a five tech is. And as a five tech, you have to have the ability to rush the passer, but also hold up against the run. This is a guy who can be that five tech in the Badgers 3-3-5 defense, in a 3-4 type defense. He can hold up on the edge against that offensive tackle, but he can also generate some pass rush there. And you need a couple of those guys. You need a really good five tech. You need a good nose guard, which I'm hoping that's going to be Jamel Howard next year, right? These are really good building blocks for the front seven. And certainly Ernest Willor fits right into that. All right, let's watch some film. Let's watch some film of Ernest Willor JR. Again, four-star consensus defensive lineman coming out of the Maryland area. And here's what we talked about, right? That's just that quick outside rush, leverage, explosion off the snap. Offensive tackle barely touched him. He has that type of ability. He has the ability to play the run here. He's come down the line of scrimmage. He really closes on ball carriers too. Like he really eats up that ground for a defensive lineman. There's the swim move we talked about, setting him up for that outside rush. He's probably beat that dude a couple times to the outside, right? And now that offensive tackle is setting to the outside, you give him that false step, swim it back around, inside rush there. Again, he's been coached. There's definitely things there to like. Explosion off the line. It's a lot. And when you look at the frame, he looks like a guy that you could put another 20 pounds on him, right? You never really know, But to me, he feels like someone as he gets around the edge again here, quarterback sack. He feels like someone that's going to play in the 280, 285, 290 range. That's probably about it. But you can be really good at that range with this type of athletic ability, explosiveness. A couple plays where he's getting the hands up in the line of scrimmage, batting down balls, creating some havoc that way. Obviously, that shows awareness. It shows athleticism. Yeah, there's a lot here. There's a lot here to like with Ernest Willor. There's a little bit of power running through the pulling fullback, blowing him up, stopping the run play. Um, Definitely just a needed get playing the run here. Again, that's another part there of the awareness, right? Reading the play, not overrunning it, especially with his athletic ability. I think there's a couple clips where he actually drops back in coverage. He has a pick on one of these, which he's not doing that at Wisconsin, but it's nice to see the athleticism. Here it is. He's going to drop back in a little hook zone, jump up, grab the ball. I mean, how many defensive linemen, A, don't get into that spot, and B, just drop that ball, right? It just shows you that's not something that's going to translate to Wisconsin like as a coverage guy, but it shows you some of the athleticism, some of the tools that he has, the ability to get out in space and still have some spatial awareness, make the play, make the catch. Really good football player here. All right, we're going to pause there. Ernest Willor Jr., watch a couple more clips. Oh, look at that power there. Just rocks the offensive lineman with that kind of two-handed grab. Comes back in, makes the play. Good motor on these clips too. He'll chase down plays from behind, get down the line of scrimmage, keeps after it. Here's another one where he's just going to keep after it. The quarterback steps up in the pocket. You need that. Motor is something that players have or they don't. A lot of times that doesn't get coached, and this is a player who plays with a lot of motor. Again, it's this highlight film, right? We always have to note that we're watching the best clips here, but at the best clips, you can see the upside. You can see what type of player he could potentially become. We're going to wrap it up there. We have Brian Smith coming on to talk about Ernest Willor Jr. a little bit more and get his view of this prospect from a recruiting analyst perspective.
Brian, I want to start with the big news, the good news of the day for the Badgers. Ernest Willor Jr., big-time defensive lineman, consensus 4-star, with an offer list to back it up, commits to the Badgers.
He is one of my favorite kids from the East Coast and the class overall. Had a chance to meet him a little over a year ago at Under Armour in Bradenton, Florida. That's a put-together kid, man. He had offers from everybody, Penn State, Ohio State, Notre Dame, you name it. I don't know what the deal is on why he picked Wisconsin, but, I mean, his offer list, as you noted, backs it up. He's an edge guy, can stand up, but he could put his hand in the dirt too. Depends on what you want to run on a particular play. So if they go 3-man or 4-man, he's good. But most importantly, that's a pass rusher. Well, Wisconsin never gets these guys. This is a great start for them because you got to get a guy like this every year, at least one of them. And now that's year one. You need 2 or 3 more years of this to be where you want to be. But getting a kid like Ernest, especially from Maryland, which is pretty unique, is a great thing because if you don't broaden your base, you're not going to win with just Chicago and Wisconsin kids. That's not enough. So that's a good sign for Wisconsin too, but big pickup with Willor.
Watching him on film, and I definitely want to pick your brain more on this. He's interesting because it feels like, and you mentioned it right away, I want to go off it. He can play a lot of different spots. You can play him inside, outside. Maybe can stuff the run on first and second down and then move inside a little bit as a pass rusher. Where do you see him ultimately being the most impactful as he kind of matures through the college strength and conditioning program?
Depends on your scheme. If you're going to run a true 4-3, I would think strong side defensive end as a junior and senior. But depending on the circumstance and who he has around him, that's the really big part. If you're weak at 3-tech, maybe on 3rd and 7, you put him at 3-tech going against a guard. If you've got, again, this is why you recruit in as many as possible. So another defensive end who's not as heavy as him, he'll be 260 or more by the time he leaves Wisconsin, probably 260 when he arrives. If you can do it that way and get more guys on the field, that's what Ohio State does. That's what like UCLA had a great defense this year, et cetera. You have to be able to move guys inside because you just got a bunch of dudes. If they play 3-man line, you could do some stuff like that too, and he may stand up part of the time. But yeah, he's a package guy. And your nickel, maybe he drops into coverage every now and then in his own blitz package. There's all kinds of ways to use him. But again, if you get the athlete like that, it opens your playbook. If you don't get him, then you're just another defense.
When you watch him on film, where does he still need to get better, do you think?
Probably playing the run. That's the thing that most pass rushers don't do well early on. And honestly, it's one of the reasons that they don't do so well as it relates to getting on the field for what fans want. Well, why isn't the stud in there? It's because he gets beat with eye candy, play action, bootlegs, et cetera. And they don't get beat, they get smoked. And then a guy gets, once a quarterback gets on the edge in today's era, Like if you just misplay the run, don't understand your keys, that's a 40-yard play. So that's why they usually just get in on 3rd and a gazillion miles. Because if they get beat, they still might stop the kid. They don't tell him that, but that's like off the record kind of like he doesn't understand the playbook yet. Is something I hear all the time from coaches. But if he can figure that part out, 3rd and 7, he's good to go. He needs to be able to add moves and all that. But his natural twitch, his power, he's got really strong hands at the point of attack. He'll be able to get off some blocks pretty early in his career. Just needs to add to the pass rush repertoire. And again, the run game's a little different. Think about the guys you go against at offensive tackle in the Big Ten. I mean, those are grown men now. 260 kid that hasn't been through the weight program very much. The first down and 10 is hard for freshmen in the box. That's asking a lot.
What does it say about Wisconsin recruiting when they're able to go into Maryland? You talked about the Maryland area doing well in there. It's kind of unusual. And then to pull a 4-star defensive lineman like this.
That means you've got contacts. Recruiting is about who you know, recruiting consistently, having the ability to gain confidence from people at a hopefully an area, excuse me, but preferably, a prime program, and then it kind of spreads. Like the greater DC area, just outside of it, the programs that you hear about, DeMatha, Gilman, stuff like that, you have to be able to get in that door. But everybody's trying to do the same thing. It's not like Wisconsin hammers home Maryland very often. Everybody recruits there. USC recruits there, for crying out loud. Texas has gone to the East Coast and gotten kids from like New Jersey and stuff like that. It's very competitive. So it is a high water mark, but they've got guys on staff that have connections there. And this is the beginning step for Wisconsin to be successful long-term. I remember when they got Ron Dane, he was like a first-team USA Today All-American. It was a shock. They even got him to visit originally. Like nobody thought they were going to get him, and it started to change their program. You have to get somebody like that nobody thinks you're going to get. This could be maybe their first guy on defense. And again, you got to get Philly kids, you got to get New Jersey kids, stuff like that. They're not going to come down here where I live and just plunk all kinds of guys. Get a few, but that can be their home base. Iowa used to do that in the 80s under Hayden Fry. He got a bunch of New Jersey PA kids and stuff. They were a top 10 program. Why can't Wisconsin do that? Sure enough, they can.